Now, let's talk about this. So Bitcoin price just ditched a 3-month downtrend as a key shift begins. So we see a classic US dip as the dollar gains. So if we go back over here to let me get my own photo out of the way here. If we go to the Dixie chart, you can see that since March 18th, we had a rally in the dollar index. So if we go back, there we go. Bitcoin had dipped right as the dollar gained because they move inverse. So you can see here, we had this big dip right here on this timeline. Boom, drop down right as we got this increase over here in the dollar index. So Bitcoin copied the US stocks' lack of momentum with the S&P 500 and composite both heading lower at the open. Now, granted, this was a day ago, so we had a little bit of a pullback yesterday. Daily chart breakout joins Bitcoin bullish price hints. So after 3 months, Bitcoin had escaped the downtrend, marking the latest in a series of recent reversal cues. Quote, Bitcoin has just broken out of a 3-month descending channel, signaling a key shift in market structure. So check this out. We've been in this downward trending slope, and we're finally starting to move out of that. So hopefully we follow this pattern up here. We get out of the slope, and then we start moving upwards. So let's continue on. Bitcoin sellers, however, lurk from 88 to 90. If you remember, if we go back to Bitcoin, there was the thing, right, where let's call it, let's call this, actually this 91 level's a bit off. Let's say it's 90-ish. Everybody was concerned. Let's keep 90 grand, right? Right about there. So we come up here, resistance, we finally broke above it, support, boom, support, boom, close to it, support, broke down underneath it. So this 90K level is important because this whole time from November all the way through February, it was like, well, as long as we hold 90, we're all set. We're all set, no problem. And then we smashed right down through it. So really, in my opinion, it'd be great to get us first back up above 85, which we are right now, and then to break above that 20-week, and then finally get above that 90, and then I'll feel a hell of a lot better about that. So let's continue on here. Where am I? There we go. So there's been some people stepping in to sell. So on one hand, whales have been accumulating. However, from this, whale position sentiment metric exhibited a sharp reversal in the chart, indicating that major players with a bearish bias have stepped in. The metric defines the relationship between the aggregated open interest in trades larger than 1 million across multiple exchanges. So it seems like some of the whales have gotten bearish. So when the whale position sentiment starts to decline, even if the price temporarily rises, it's a strong signal that whales are entering short positions, which may lead to a price drop. So you can see that all of these have gone red. That was back in, I guess that's right about now. I'm not sure. This chart's kind of screwy there. Anyway, last week, CEO of Crypto Quant noted that markets were entering a bear market, and investors should expect 6 to 12 months of bearish or sideways price action. I don't think so, frankly. I think that we need to go into a full-blown, full-on trade war. No exceptions, 25% tariffs across the board. Inflation needs to get out of control, all that stuff. And I just don't think that's going to happen. Bitcoin outflows reached 424 million in 7 days, while while on-chain metrics turned red. Some investors exhibited confidence in Bitcoin data. The block highlighted a Bitcoin net outflow of 220 million from exchanges past 24 hours. So basically, these are people buying the dip and then sending it out to their cold storage wallet. That usually doesn't indicate selling behavior. So while whales possibly shorting between 88 and 90,000, again, short-term moves, Bitcoin needs to close above 90 to continue the rally up to 100. I think it was Scott Bessent. Was it Scott Bessent? Or maybe it was Bo, whatever his name is. I think it was Bo, the guy who's now in charge of like the digital asset stockpile for the US government. He said, I think people are really discounting the Bitcoin strategic reserve. He said, I think that we're going to end up looking back at like 200,000, 230,000 Bitcoin and saying like, God, remember when it was at like 80,000 and people were just thinking that it was no big deal? I'm going to skip this because this is a long article on how tariffs, basically this article, maybe I'll share this if you guys want. I'm going to put this in the chat. This is an interesting read. It's just probably a bit too long to cover here. It's a like a step-by-step timeline. There we go. Just shared it in the chat. It's a step-by-step timeline on how Trump has kind of dropped the market by doing all this tariff craziness. So in addition to that craziness, we had a bit of a drop in prices across the board with crypto and stocks yesterday because Trump announced an additional 25% tariff on auto imports, on all foreign imports, which is crazy. So it's just these kind of like whipsaw moving one way or another that makes the market nervous. Trump announced Wednesday he plans to impose an additional 25% tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of imported cars and auto parts, hitting key trading partners and allies like Mexico, Canada, South Korea, Japan, and Germany. Right here, the White House official said that cars imported from Canada and Mexico would be taxed based on the amount of non-U.S. content in a vehicle. Because remember, it's not like everything's made out of the U.S. or in the U.S. So if a car made in Mexico contains 50% American content and 50% foreign, the 25% tariff rate would be cut in half to 12.5%. Okay, so he's trying to, I get what he's trying to do here, but again, this reeks of socialist style central planning, which is not what free markets are. So a tariff increase on automobiles is likely to increase the price of high dollar items that Americans purchase every year. Of course, consumers bought nearly 16 million cars, priced close to 50 grand. Almost 50% of the vehicles sold in the U.S. are imported. So suddenly, that Toyota you wanted for 50 grand is now going to be, assuming it's not all made here in the U.S., but yeah, it's just going to be kind of a mess here. So the market didn't like that. The market pulled back on that. In fact, if we go back and we look at the S&P, you can see things were going well until yesterday when Trump announced this and then dropped, right? So you can see the instant he mentions something about tariffs, it just drops, right? So we also had a little bit of hope last Thursday when he mentioned, hey, we could be easing off on some of these. It's not going to be 25% across the board. I'm going to be a little bit more focused in this. And the market rose based on the news until he now started talking about more tariffs and then it dropped. So, you know, it's like Trump is the new Elon Musk of 2021. 2021, it seemed like single-handedly Musk just had to tweet anything about anything crypto and he would either like live or die based on his words. And now, because Trump has so much power around the overall greater financial ecosystem, he's kind of steering the boat here. So hopefully it doesn't crash into the rocks. So anyway, one thing that came up that was kind of interesting is that the Trump's World Financial Token project, they're trying to do a thing in which it's almost like an online fund that you can invest in, that they'll invest assets for you and stake them and earn a return and all that kind of stuff. And this bothers me a bit. So one of the big trends that we need to pay attention to and that I'm looking out for investments in for us is how do we play the whole stablecoin game? Because, just buying and holding a stablecoin doesn't do anything for you, right? Because it's stable. But there could be opportunities to get into stablecoins, buy some of their governance tokens if they're truly decentralized, so on and so forth. So I'm still looking at how we go about doing that, and I'll keep you guys in the loop there, but I'm actively looking for opportunities for us. So Trump's USD1 stablecoin deepens concerns over conflicts of interest. So Trump's World Liberty Financial announced that they were going to be doing their own stablecoin. So there we go. The Trump family's crypto project is planning to release a stablecoin, raising fears or concerns over the U.S. president's exposure to the digital asset industry. I don't think this guy should be getting in that game. I think that the incentives are just they're too much that they could go bad, right? Insider trading, insider dealing, favoring your own projects that you're invested in. I just don't like it. So WLFI has made multi-million-dollar crypto purchases of tokens immediately prior to important crypto-related events. That's basically insider trading. The same thing that we give, Nancy Pelosi shit about of being an insider trader and her husband making all this money from perfect trading. Trump's doing the same thing with crypto. So has attended, blah, blah. So they go in and buy like a ton of tokens right before they make huge policy announcements. That's not fair. WLFI purchased $20 million of various tokens ahead of the March 7th White House Crypto Summit. As the portfolio grows and regulatory oversight disappears from the crypto industry, right, because we are starting to knock down a bunch of the SEC and FINRA and things like that, observers and legal scholars are becoming increasingly concerned over conflicts of interest with the Trump administration. I agree. So his stablecoin is riddled with liabilities. Observers have already begun to raise the alarm about possible security risks posed by the stablecoin connected to the president. Market manipulations, violations of the Emoluments Clause of the U.S. Constitution, a section of the document that protects against undue influence over American leaders. Quote, it's a direct affront to constitutional safeguards meant to protect conflicts of interest. Now, I thought this was fascinating. With Trump and his family controlling 60% of World Liberty Equity's token interests, the USD1 stablecoin could facilitate, here's the important part, indirect financial gains or undue foreign influence over policy, particularly if foreign entities invest or use stablecoins. So you could have someone that is, trying to influence the president by buying a whole bunch of his tokens and being able to say, hey, be a real shame if you didn't do this thing that was beneficial to our country. I might just have to dump 30% share and drop your token prices big time. We don't want that, right? That's not good. And if you ever want to know why Trump is so big onto crypto all of a sudden, take a look at this. This blew my mind. I didn't realize this. This is a estimate chart on Trump's financial net worth. Look up at the very, very top half. So the Trump token, now granted, this is not liquid at all, right? But Trump affiliated, blah, blah, blah. Trump affiliated entities own 80% of the overall Trump token uh, supply. That's crazy. And that's worth 1.8 billion. That's a measurable amount of his overall net worth. And then the World Liberty Financial, 1.1 billion. That's crazy. Trump entities hold 22.5 billion. That's like a huge amount of World Liberty Financial tokens as well. So he owns a majority share in each of these. And then the Trump Media and Technology Group, basically this is the Truth Social. This is memery right here. It's worth $2.3 billion, but it has something like, I don't know, something like $13 million in like operating income and income that it brings in from ads or whatever. It's an absolute joke. Anyway, and then all this teeny stuff down here, these hundreds of millions of dollars versus billions, these are actually like real estate and cash and whatnot. But yeah, look at this giant amount of like well over probably 70% of his net worth is now mostly crypto and crypto related stuff and social media. So that is wild. The project's emphasis on cross-border payments was particularly worrisome, and that foreign entities may invest as a way to gain favor with Trump. So you could have some foreign government that's not really favorable to the U.S. go and buy a ton of these tokens and use that and hold it over our head. U.S. policymakers have already noted the possibility of foreign influence following the launch of Trump's meme coin. So this is pretty crazy. It's true. Anyone globally, even individuals who have been sanctioned by the U.S. or banned from our capital markets, can now trade and profit off of Trump tokens through various unregulated platforms. So, you could have the Lazarus Group out of North Korea going and buying up Trump tokens, right? Trying to sabotage the price. It's not good. Rusal said the president's role in the stablecoin project at the same time, working to craft stablecoin legislation in the form of the Genius Act is a constitutional violation that could destabilize regulatory integrity. I tend to agree. I think this is overall bad, but we're going to keep an eye on this because this is going to directly affect probably the reactions and crypto regulations. So I just, it seems to me kind of like an own goal for Trump and the Republicans. Like he doesn't need to do these things, and it makes him a bigger target credibly for people to say this is bullshit. And I think that's bad. So resolution. Here's some good news. To kill the IRS DeFi broker rule heads to Trump desks. He'll sign this. If you guys remember back in, it seems like an eon ago, I think it was, well, let's check it out. Trump is expected to sign off on a resolution undoing a rule that requires DeFi protocols to report to U.S. tax authorities. So this was a Biden era rule that we fought like hell. I've called multiple congressmen over this stuff and like whatnot. The Senate voted 70-28. That's awesome to pass a motion repealing the so-called IRS DeFi broker rule. Never went into effect, but it was going to go into effect soon. That aimed to expand the existing IRS reporting requirements to crypto. So let's continue on what this means. The White House and AI and crypto czar David Sachs said Trump supports killing this. The rule would aim DeFi platforms such as decentralized exchanges. Think like Uniswap, Jupiter, SushiSwap, you name it, to file their gross proceeds from crypto sales and include information on those involved in the transactions. That's crazy. So this basically said that, Uniswap, the company who originally created this project, instead of it being a decentralized protocol that lives on the internet, these guys would be treated like Coinbase. And they'd be treated just like a normal exchange.
Hey, this is Brett from Moonstream. If you'd like to learn more about our pro trading signals or our live classes every Wednesday or our Retire Rich program, go over to moonstream.io/start.